Okay, welcome back. We are back with the Small Business Hour. What episode number is this, Ben? Like seven,
Seven,
eight, somewhere
maybe
in that
six,
ballpark.
seven.
Yeah. Been a busy last week after the holidays last week. Hope everybody had a very happy Thanksgiving. We are coming to you on November 30th as we get ready to wrap up November and head into the last month of the year. Okay. Today, we are going to start with each one of us is going to go over. We've had a lot of change in our organization, which I won't get into over the last couple of weeks. There's a lot of things going on, so we thought it'd be a good time to reflect a little bit and talk about what have the three of us learned over the past year or so, working, running, being a part of a small business that we think we can pass on to other small business owners and leaders out there that they might be able to benefit from. So we're going to start with that. We're going to spend a little bit of time talking about each of those things, and then we're going to jump to conference championship picks. It is conference championship weekend in college football. As you know, if you've watched this before, we're college football junkies. Tim's Texas Longhorns are playing my Oklahoma State Cowboys in the Big 12 championship. So we'll certainly be picking that here in a few moments, but we're going to start with the more business applicable information, which is what have we learned over the past year being a part of a small business. Tim, I'm going to go to you first. What lesson or lessons have you learned while you've been a part of this business, leading and operating a small business that you think would be applicable that you could share with other small business leaders out there?
Yeah, I think it's a dangerous road that you've ventured on to ask me to go first, because if you all know by now, I'm probably the longest winded of the three of us. So I'm going to try to keep it
Well, this allows
brief.
us to see how much time we have left when you're done, so Ben and I
So,
can judge
so,
accordingly. Yeah.
so are you a receive the kickoff at the first
Yeah.
half guy or a kickoff at the first half? No, I'm
Yeah,
messing.
definitely defer and receive in the second half.
Yeah. What have I learned? I think operating a small business kind of in conjunction with the two of these other guys has been a huge privilege, right? First and foremost, to be able to work with people who, you really enjoy working with, first off, but have a tremendous amount of respect for, secondarily, is a huge privilege for me. So being able to work with folks that you enjoy working with is a huge benefit. One thing that I've learned this year in particular is that if you sell a service at your business, you've got to be prepared for the significant ups and downs that come with selling that particular service. I tell Kate and Ben all the time, it's not like we're over here selling soap to dirty people, right? We're actually selling services to businesses that can benefit, but some of them don't know that they can benefit. So meeting them where they're at, helping them understand what we do, but also learning about their company more and how we might dovetail into their operations and genuinely help them grow their operations, grow their revenues, whatever goals or KPIs they're trying to achieve. That's a tremendous privilege and a huge challenge at the same time too, right? Because for us, it's been very much kind of feast or famine, right? We've had some great months and weeks. Then we've also had weeks where we thought we were going to close some deals that we didn't actually close, and we were pretty confident in it. And I guess the message there is the persistence and the consistency of knowing what we're doing is the right thing. Really kind of paves the way for us to continue to be successful. And for any businesses out there that, again, you're selling a service, you might have felt the same way, right? You might feel down in the trenches and not knowing where next paycheck is going to come from. But if you're consistent and you can keep at it and keep providing value to the people that you're privileged enough to be able to work with, that's where this thing can really become powerful. And because we've been consistent, maybe through some of those tough times, we're seeing the fruits of those labors now. That's not to say that we won't have difficulties in the future. That would be very, very naive. But at the same time, it's also to say that the hard work does pay off, and the consistency pays off, and providing value for our clients pays off. So That's how I would kind of open up the conversation about what I've learned this year: the consistency, the persistence, and just making sure you work with people that you like, doing a job that you like, really helps you to be able to be successful.
No, I think that's good, and I agree with that. There's a level of it feels very difficult to put offers in. It feels really difficult to put effort in and not get returns for a long time. And sometimes that's what you have to do, right? Like sometimes you're grinding for 3, 4, 5, 6 months and you're frustrated. You're not seeing like the return that you would like to see or that you expect. And then suddenly things start to go your way. I think that effort and tenacity is very important. Ben, what about you?
Yeah, I think I agreed with everything Tim said. For me, the biggest I would say is you have to stay active, you have to stay mobile, and you have to learn quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think I go back to maybe not this time last year, but beginning of this year, and the methodologies that we were using for sales, the methodologies we were using for client engagements, the um, really every facet of the business are so different than what we are doing now. And that's not that we just made a switch in July and now I have done it this way for 6 months. No, we've done 4 or 5 different ways along the way. And I know I will raise my hand as someone who said, "Oh, I think this is going to be it. This is going to be exactly what we need. This is the big deal breaker. This is our Pareto. Where we're going to spend a little bit of time on this, but it's going to have big results." I probably said that half a dozen times this past year on various topics, and maybe one panned out. If I'm lucky, I'm not going to recount every single one, but the willingness to go and try new things, and but at the same time not stick with those things if they're not working, right? Give something a runway to succeed, but if you're investing money in ad spend and it's not going anywhere after 2 months, you probably shouldn't invest more money. If you are doing your client engagements a certain way, if you have a strategy about them and people are starting to get pissed, probably should switch that up. So, I know that's obvious to say, but at the end of the day, don't be afraid to challenge your assumptions and do different things based on the data that you are getting for your specific offer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's true. I think one of the things that's difficult um, that we've certainly experienced is you have all these theories on what you think will work or how you think something should be done, and you test them or you try to, and most of them fail. Some of them start to have success. But if you have even the smallest amount of success, then the pitfall that's easy to fall into is then you just keep doing that. Like that's you convince yourself because you have anecdotal evidence that it works, that that's now the way we should do this. And you get down the road 3, 4 months later and you haven't really taken an opportunity to sit back and say, what evidence have we collected now? Like, should we adjust how we're approaching things? Should we adjust what we're doing? And I think, like, to build off of Ben's point, one of the biggest things that I've learned, been doing this for a couple years now, is you have to be adaptable. You have to examine the evidence you have and try to make the best decision that you can in the moment with the information that you have. But then if you get new information that says you were wrong, you can't be afraid to shift. You can't marry yourself to an idea that you think is going to work, because you could bury yourself with that idea if it doesn't work, right? Like you have to be able to use the evidence that you have and adjust and adapt and react to what's actually happening. And that can come in the form of success closing clients. That can come in the form of client feedback. That can come in the form of which clients you retain and which ones you don't, and why you retained some and why you didn't. That can come in the form of how you message in a kickoff so that you set expectations around X or Y, right? And that difference in expectations with the client can make all the difference in how that client relationship plays out, right? There's a lot of pieces that you learn but you have to be willing to constantly examine evidence and then react to it. Because if you get stuck in a certain way of doing things that you're convinced is going to work, but there's no evidence to prove that, then it's going to be really detrimental to your business and what you're trying to do.
Yeah. There's a concept everybody knows about, but not many people know where it came from. I think it comes from Agile, this fail fast mentality, right? Or the fail fast method has its roots in Agile. And we all know about Agile and Scrum, right? But the idea is if you're going to fail at something, make sure it goes fast, make sure you document why, move on to the next possible solution to get to your desired result. And eventually you're going to find something that works and clicks. So Ben's absolutely right. Whenever you are doing something brand new that we don't know quite works yet, we can think what's going to work, but failing fast, moving on to the next thing is what's absolutely critical. And that kind of coincides, Kade, with what you talked about, being adaptable, kind of being committed, right? And along for the ride, but being smart at the same time. You can't just keep failing, doing the same thing, expecting different results, right?
I think I'd just quickly add to that, and I'll let you go ahead, Kade. But being humble and not being too egotistical about what your preconceived notions are. I know coming in, especially when it comes to sales, client work, not as much, but sales, how we sell to clients is very different on how I would sell to myself or how I think people would want to be sold to. What has worked is not how it would have worked for me. Yeah. And you just have to recognize that, people are similar in many ways, but people are very different in many ways. And just because what works for you or works for one customer demographic is not going to work for your other customer demographics. And you have to be flexible and understand that, sometimes, use logical reasoning on why you're doing things, but at the same time, sometimes data is better than, just logic.
Feelings.
Yeah.
Feelings. Yeah. That's the way to put it.
I think to Ben's point, you probably have to have a little bit of an ego to start your own business, which I did, and I'll be guilty on the little bit of an ego thing. And I will say 2 years down the road, nothing checks your ego like starting your own business and thinking that you know how to do that. Like I can't think of a greater like ego check than trying to do this and constantly struggling and banging your head against a wall because it feels like you can't figure out. Like if you think that you know everything, just try to start your own business and it quickly will remind you of the importance of being humble and being willing to learn because it's extremely difficult and you have to be able to examine what's going on and learn from it.
For sure.
Okay.
All right, Kade.
So I think it's my turn. Man, I've learned a lot. I think the first lesson, obviously what these guys have said are things that I've learned. I think one of the first lessons is from like a pure operations perspective is build flexibility for yourself in how you're setting up a company. And what I mean by that is like in your cost structure, don't commit to 2-3 year contracts because you get a better price. Because flexibility, Tim's laughing because he knows a specific example I'm talking about, but flexibility can be more important than that 10% that you save by signing the 2-year contract, right? Where you can go month to month, use contractors before you hire employees, at least to the extent of maybe being able to vet their quality and then hire an employee, right? Like sometimes your hand is forced and you have to do things or you choose to make a move because of the situation. But overall, the more flexibility you can give yourself in your cost structure, the better opportunity you're going to have to rise and meet the demands of clients or the changes that you learn from. Because what you think you're going to be doing, like I remember Tim and I were sitting down with another guy who I'm not going to name, but like 18 months ago, talking about how we were going to acquire clients and projections and when we would hire. And in our head, it was all about like staff augmentation and getting jobs that were revolving around putting contractors full-time for 6 to 12 months with a big company, and we don't have any of those now, right? That isn't what we do. Like what we were talking about at that stage, like, is completely different than our model now. And so the problem with that is if you make a bunch of decisions and you lock yourself into certain things, and then your model evolves, that becomes a little bit problematic. And we've had a little bit of that pain. Luckily, it hasn't killed us yet, but it's not fun to deal with. So, like, build flexibility in for yourself as much as possible. Cost structure wise, employment structure wise, like, build as much flexibility for yourself as possible. The more you can flex down your expenses, but flex up your capacity and capabilities, the more flexible you can build your working model, the better, even if you have to pay a little bit of a premium to make that a reality. But it's going to give you the ability to adapt to changing circumstances. Maybe once you've been in business for 5 or 10 years and you're really stable in a specific model, then the time for the 2-3 year contracts is there, and it's fine. But prior to that, it's just not a great idea, because that flexibility is more important. So I think that's number one. I think the second one is, like, really critically, like, look at your customers and what their pain point was, and try to understand their personas. Like, one thing that it took us a little bit to do was we were trying to get customers, and we're working at it, and every sale felt huge. And then we got down the road a little bit, and it was all huge. But what we realized is that now we have a decent number of customers, and they're all pretty different, right? Like, some of them are pretty similar, and what we do, for the most part, is kind of industry agnostic. So there's a lot of similarities maybe in the type of work that we're doing, but the customers themselves were pretty unique companies and pretty unique scenarios. And so one thing that we learned is to start to try to, like, understand, how can we start to create groupings of customer personas around this, and then, like, try to specialize in maybe certain ones more, try to learn more about those certain ones, try to target them around the pain points of that specific persona, and be a lot more targeted in what that is. And I know that doesn't sound like rocket science, because a lot of sales gurus out there will tell you that. But I think it goes to, like, how you serve your customers too, right? Like, from the sales process to operating and serving your clients, the more effectively you can intimately know kind of their type of organization, what their pain points are. I think that's beneficial. And then I think the kind of the other learning that I would say is, find good partner companies that you trust and are good at what they do, both from a consume their services perspective and also from a referral network perspective. We have a marketing partner that we think very highly of. We try to send clients to them. They try to send clients to us. We pay them for our marketing stuff, but we trust them. We get along really well. We play golf together. We go to dinner together. We enjoy spending time with each other, and we both do good work. We have our IT managed services provider has sent us multiple pieces of work, and we've sent some to them, right? Like we have these relationships where we found good partners who do not the same but complementary services. And what that creates is this network of touch points where we're all talking to prospects or customers on a regular basis. And now when you hear of this pain point that you can't solve, but one of your partners can, it gives you that opportunity to further strengthen that relationship, give a close partner a referral, and then all of that comes back to you, right? Like, if you do that with partners, if you work at that, it's all going to come back around, and it's a really good way to grow your business and a really good way to build a solid foundation of partners and companies that you work with. So I think I could probably go on for hours, but I think obviously we're fairly new. We're a 2-year-old company. and we've drastically changed how and what we do kind of over that time. So a lot of our learnings have been around how do we set up our operations correctly, how do we service clients correctly, and selling is the biggest thing, right? Like how do we effectively find and source clients? That's probably one of the biggest challenges that most small businesses are dealing out there with. But when I think of that, like the tenacity, being able to reflect and learn on what you've seen from the clients that you did get, putting them into personas, and then building strong partner networks where you have that kind of referral network. Those are all really solid things that I would say to complement the things that Ben and Tim said as far as how you can effectively like try to build your business.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say something real quick on that. Like the last thing that you said, Kate, about building your referral partners, I think naively, I thought, as we're talking to people who could potentially be partners with us who are not exactly in our line of business that we could, kind of feed clients to. I thought that the most effective strategy would be for us to get something from them first and then kind of forward folks their way. Whereas in actuality, if you're the one to kind of, uh, feed them first, they will consistently be thinking about, okay, how can we continue to, make this a mutually beneficial partnership? It kind of just takes that first person to move, right? So I guess what I'm trying to say is that from here,
be the first person to move.
Yeah, our natural instinct now is to ask, what can we do for you, right? Like who is your ICP? What can we do? How can we forward them to you? What do you sell? Like all the typical questions. And then if we do that first, they're very quick to do that for us too. And like you said, you can grow from there. So that's something that's a learning experience for me for sure.
Yeah, I think that's an important point actually. Everyone says they want to be a referral partner. And what they mean is we want you to send us business, right? Like we have people that reach out to us on LinkedIn all the time and they're like, I think we have complimentary services. We'd love to talk about a referral partnership. And then back in the day, we used to get on the phone with them. Now we kind of just ignore it. But we used to get on the phone with them and they wanted to like go through who our clients were so we could tell them if we had clients that they could work with. And it's like, I don't care, man. Like that's not how this should work. And so like a lot of people never actually build that referral network because it's really just everybody telling everybody else that they should send them referrals. But if you find people you trust that are good, that you feel good about sending referrals to, and you take that first step, you make an effort to make those connections, then people will be like, oh, these guys are serious about this. They sent us a piece of business. Let's see what we can do for them. And that actually fosters that relationship. Like most people are out for themselves when they talk about a referral net. Well, we all are, if we're being honest, but you have to be willing to put in the effort to help the other ones out too. If you take that first step when you find partners that you feel good about, that's going to get them to actually take you seriously as a potential referral partner. Otherwise, you're going to have conversations about how you can send work to each other, and then nobody will ever actually send work to each other.
Well, and that's the reason why it's so important to have good referral partners. Like you said, there's referral partners everywhere out there, but you want the good ones, right? You want the people who are feeding you leads that you can actually serve, not just wasting your time hopping on the phone with somebody that you can't actually do anything for, or they can't do anything for you, right? Like that's not it's great to make a friend, right? But at the end of the day, business is business. And to be able to succeed, you've got to have effective referral partners to be able to do that, or you should. You don't have to, but it's a lot harder to do it without other people who are in your court kind of helping you out, because we're doing the same thing for others.
Yep, 100%. Okay, let's get to the fun part of the show, which is conference championship picks.
All right, let me get my fancy PowerPoint up. Highly professional, super fancy. I don't
know if you're being sarcastic. Or you're just...
Of course, I'm being serious.
PowerPoint is super, super high tech. That's the most complicated system Ben deals with on a daily basis.
Yeah. All right, we're live. So I'll start talking since I picked the games. Basically, we were going to do the main. Basically, anyone who has a decent chance of making the college football playoff. So Pac-12, Big 12, We've got SEC, Big Ten, and ACC in here. And then since Tim is a Liberty grad, a double-time Liberty grad, if I'm not mistaken,
That's right.
we'll include Liberty in there since they're also undefeated and ranked. So I don't think it's an odd inclusion. And then these are in chronological order. I think we're going to do it based on the spread, which I've included here. But if people want to give straight up as well,
and spread.
we can do that.
Yeah, straight up and spread.
Okay.
Yeah,
Maybe I'll just document the spread,
right.
but because it's going to get messy in here. But Kade, I put you on the left, mostly because you're my boss. So why don't you go ahead and get us started?
Okay. Are we picking Liberty, New Mexico State first?
No, I think we start at the bottom and go up. That's the logical way that we should do it, Kade.
That's the one that you want to do first. Yeah. Okay. So
no, let's start
in Liberty, New Mexico State. All right. Thank you for the smart ass comments. So Liberty, New Mexico State. I know New Mexico State just smoked up Auburn, and I know a little bit about Liberty primarily just because of Tim. I know they beat New Mexico State, by 17, 20, something like that earlier in the year, Tim?
Yeah, earlier in the season. Second game, I think. Yeah. So it was kind of first or second game. I honestly forget, but it was kind of back whenever you don't know how good teams are.
Yeah. So I think this is the game that I know the least about, but I think Liberty wins, but New Mexico State covers. I think they've got better. I think it's a close game. I think Liberty pulls out something like a touchdown game.
Yeah.
So Liberty straight up, New Mexico State to cover.
I like it. Ben, are we going left to right?
Don't ask, because he's just going to make a smart aleck comment. Just assume that's what we're doing.
Do it. What would you like to ask, Tim?
Do you want to go next, or do you want me to go next, Ben?
Why don't we just go left to right?
All right, sounds good.
Great idea. Not all smart aleck comments, Kade.
Ben and I have a really mutual respect going on. Kade likes to dish it back, so he gets a little bit of a smart alecky comment sometimes. This one was one of the hardest ones for me, even though the lines on some of the other games are a little bit closer, because I've seen what New Mexico State did to Auburn, like in Auburn too. Liberty's good. Liberty's played a couple of close games this year, even at home. I'm going to have to go with the exact same situation that Kade pulled out. I am picking New Mexico State to cover against Liberty, but Liberty will win.
All right. Cool. That was my initial thought as well. But since you guys both picked that, what I'm actually going to say is, so this game, I don't know if you guys know, this is actually in Lynchburg. I'm sure Tim knows that, but I don't know if Kade knows that.
Are you going? Oh, no, you're not going, Tim.
No, I'm not going. I wish I could, but yeah, I have to skip.
You'll be in Texas. Yeah.
I think the line is pretty close to there. I was thinking like somewhere between a touchdown and field goal and 2 touchdowns. I probably would skip out on this line. I probably won't bet on it, even though I can't, because Liberty is a Virginia school and you can't bet on Virginia schools while you're in Virginia. But I'll go ahead and take Liberty and say I think it's not that one. It's pretty close. I don't have a very strong opinion either way, so I'll be the smart aleck that picks something else.
Hey, I hope you're right, honestly, Ben. I mean, to go to 13-0, Liberty's never done that before. They've never done 12-0, so they're already in uncharted territory. So if they can somehow pull it out and then go to a good bowl game, you never know.
Yeah, depending on what happens with Tulane, they could get a New Year's Six bowl.
Yeah.
There's a possibility, at least. So, so we all think Liberty wins, but Ben's the only one who thinks Liberty covers. Okay. Oregon, Washington. So I'm torn on this because I think Oregon's a better team. Obviously, Washington won on a last-minute field goal when they played at Washington earlier in the year. I think, like obviously Vegas and many others, think that Oregon is a little bit better, has been playing better, and is going to win the game. But I'm torn a little bit now because of how obvious everyone is picking Oregon. If I was Washington and I beat Oregon and I was undefeated and I was sitting around just listening to everybody talk about how we were going to get destroyed, and then I see this line, minus 9.5, which is just straight up disrespectful to a team that already beat the team that they're playing.
And is undefeated.
In what was probably the best conference in the country this year. Funny enough, since it was the last year that it exists. But so I'm a little torn. Part of me is starting to lean towards Washington to win. I think that spread is ridiculous. Could Oregon win by more than that? Sure, but I think Washington is just as likely to win by more than that as Oregon is. I think it's a pretty evenly matched game. I think in all likelihood it's a very close game. I still think Oregon wins, and Bo Nix wraps up the Heisman in the game. But if you ask me tomorrow, I might have talked myself into Washington because I think I'll be going back and forth up until game time. I'm going to say Washington covers for sure, though. And the straight up, I am picking Oregon right now, but I am very much debating it.
I feel like I'm drinking the green and gold Kool-Aid on this one, man. Like you're right, Cade. The line keeps growing. I think I saw it 2 days ago. It was 5.5 points, and honestly, the 9.5 is the first time I'm seeing this line. So I'm going to check Ben while he's talking here in just a second, make sure that's actually true. But I've been a huge Bo Nix fan all year long. He's torn up some amazing teams and defenses. I like him a lot. I think that Oregon covers and whoops Washington to go to the CFP.
All right. I am basically in complete alignment with Cade on this. I have not watched a lot of Pac-12 games, and from everything I've seen, these teams are more or less neck and neck in terms of quality. I think the win for Washington last time was at Washington, and it was a pretty dang close game, 36-33. That tells me that, head to head at that time, I think these teams were inseparable. This game's neutral site, Las Vegas. I think I just play the underdog with that big of a line. I mean, if it's more than a touchdown, I think you just take Washington and, hope for a close game. But yeah, I wouldn't be able to pick them straight up. So I'll just same logic as Kate, take Washington.
All right. So now the real the fun one of the weekend, my alma mater, Oklahoma State versus Tim's dad's alma mater, Texas. Tim grew up a big Texas fan. And we were going to go to the game together. We're not going to because we both had kind of some things going on, but would have been really fun to do it. So, look, we own Texas. That's been clear. We've won 8 of the last 10 times. Last year in Stillwater, we had no business winning, and we won. We have dominated this series over the last 15 years. We are the underdog where we love to be. Oklahoma State always plays to the level of their competition, which is why we can beat Oklahoma and Texas and lose to South Alabama and get demolished by UCF, right? Like we've done that for since I was in college there and Brandon Whedon was thrown to Justin Blackman. Like that is just how it goes. But when we play good teams, generally we rise up and play pretty well. We're definitely covering because I think it's going to be a close game, especially with the way I could be wrong. Texas fans are talking about, man, we need style points. We need to blow them out and run up the score so that we can get into the college football playoff. And I'm like, man, you'd be lucky if you win the game. All the pressure is on Texas. We have owned Texas. Texas is the better team. By every right, they should win this game. But I just don't think they're going to. I think we're going to win. I think we're going to win, not just cover. I think we're going to win straight up in a big game. If this helmet fit me, I would put it on. But I think we're bringing the Big 12 championship home to Stillwater.
I like it. I feel like I should have, or that you should have had like a Lee Corso headgear or something to put on over there, Cade.
Yeah,
I guess you did have the helmet.
Head,
yeah, 100%. I don't think you're wrong in most areas that you covered, except for one, and that is consequently, the most important area of who's going to actually win the game. I think Texas wins. I do think OSU covers. The one stat that I'm most interested in is we all know that Ollie Gordon has torn up the entire year, right? The entire Big 12 and all the competition. I forget how many games did he not have 100 yards rushing in. Okay, do you have any idea?
Okay, so he didn't have 100 yards rushing in the first 3 games because he only averaged like 4 carries a game because we hadn't figured out we had the best running back in the country at that point.
Correct.
Every game after that, except for UCF, which is the one that we lost after that, and he's had 100 yards.
Yeah. See, so all right, there's that stat, and then you've got Texas, who's the best third down defense, and if I'm memory serves me correct, a top 10 overall defense from a rushing perspective. It's going to be a really interesting game, is what I'm trying to say. I don't think, because Texas is very similar to OSU in that they play to the level of their competition. Just see the Alabama game earlier this year, right? And then also see how we almost lost to Houston at home. So there's so much that goes into these types of games that I can't fully say that Texas is going to win and cover. I think OSU covers for sure. I think Texas does win, but OSU is definitely going to cover, and we'll have to see what happens. It might be a shootout. It might be somehow weirdly a defensive battle. Like, we're just going to kind of have to see. Oh, also, before Ben gets to his pick, I love how the previous pick in our actual picks spells out wow. Love that. All right, Ben, on to you.
Good call, Tim. For sake of time, because we're starting to run out of time, I'm going to keep it short and sweet. I think OSU took care of their main rival in their last game ever with their Big 12 pride. I'm not sure if they're going to do it again, but I think OSU steps up for this game more than Texas does. I think this game stays close. I'm not sure who will end up winning, but 15.5 is way too many points. So I have to say OSU as well. So, all right. Let's jump over to the last 3 games. Okay, do you want to go first?
So, yeah, I will. So Georgia, Alabama is extremely difficult. I'm very tempted with Bama just because it's Bama, and Jalen Milroe has kind of turned a complete corner since losing to Texas early in the year. I also kind of want Bama to win just because if Texas does beat us, I want the most absolute chaotic scenario for the college football playoff committee, and I'd love to see them have to explain either putting Alabama in over Texas when Texas beat them in Tuscaloosa by 10, which makes zero sense at all, or leaving the SEC out of the playoff altogether, which would absolutely make them their heads explode. So I'd love to see them have to explain one of those 2 things. So I want Bama to win. With that being said, I just think Georgia's too good. I think if it wasn't for Georgia, this might be one of the most compelling college football years we've ever seen as far as parity and the number of teams that could win the national championship. I still think that's kind of true. I just don't think anybody can beat Georgia if they play their best. Yeah. Georgia can beat Georgia if they don't show up and they don't play well. If Georgia is rolling, I don't think there's anybody who can beat them. And I think they'll be rolling Saturday. So I'm taking Georgia to win. Line's probably in the right spot because it makes me hesitant. Do you think it's a 3-point game? Do you think it's a 7-point game? But I'm taking Georgia to cover as well, I think.
I'm going to flip it because I like the first part of what you talked about, Kade, the amount of chaos that would ensue if Alabama does beat Georgia and what that means for the overall playoff. I'm going to take Alabama to win, and I sure hope, well, obviously they're going to cover if they win, but I hope they win by a lot, honestly, 10 or more. And that's what I would pick because I would love to see what they do with Texas selfishly if Alabama does do that. We'll have to see.
Yeah. I think I'm looking at the last few games for each. Obviously, we all know what happened in Auburn recently with Alabama. Barely made it out alive by the skin of their teeth. Tim and I were. I wouldn't say we were live tweeting to Kade while Kade was at the OSU BYU game, but we were like, Kade, make sure you look at the highlights when you have a minute.
Yeah.
And then I look at Georgia. So take away the rivalry game. Rivalry games you can usually throw out the window in terms of equality because those were always tight. But the 3 games before that, Georgia won 3 top 20 games. One by 9, one by 35, and one by 28. I think all 3 of those games are comparable difficulty to what they're going to see with Alabama. So I think Georgia wins, and I think they win big. I would say 10 plus. So I'm definitely taking Georgia.
All ends of the spectrum.
I obviously made the same pick as you, but comparable difficulty. Georgia didn't play Mizzou, I don't think, Alabama didn't play Mizzou.
9.
Alabama didn't play Mizzou. Sorry,
Alabama
I'm talking
didn't
about
play
the
Mizzou.
3 teams that you. So Georgia beat Mizzou by 9, but Alabama beat Ole Miss and LSU, which are the 2 teams Georgia played, right? Or was it Tennessee?
No, Georgia beat at Tennessee.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Bama smoked both Ole Miss and Tennessee pretty good too. So I don't know that comparable difficulty is fair, but I agree with your assessment on the game. I just think Alabama is quite a bit better than Ole Miss or Tennessee.
Mm-hmm.
If we're going based off ranking, Alabama's 8 and Georgia beat the number 9 team by 35. Now, I'm not saying that that's the best way to do it, but I'm just saying if it
Ole
was
Miss
like
number 9
either at the time or right now, one or the other.
Well, I don't care about at the time. At the time, rankings are stupid because some teams end up sucking, and Texas A&M is a top 5, top 10 win for everybody at the beginning of the year, and then sometimes they don't even make a bowl game. So, like, where they were ranked at the time doesn't matter to me. Okay. Anyway, Michigan, Iowa. This isn't even worth talking about. Michigan's going to destroy Iowa.
Agree.
They're going to cover. Iowa has no business being in the Big Ten Championship. Iowa doesn't. That whole side of the Big Ten is just abysmal. I would love a scenario where Oklahoma State gets to play Iowa in a bowl game. I know they beat Iowa State earlier in the year, who beat us. Iowa State was bad at the beginning of the year, just like us. They kind of figured their stuff out later. Pretty sure Iowa State would smoke Iowa if they played them right now. I would love for us to play Iowa because I think we would smoke them too. I think Iowa would go like 6-6 in any other conference, but because they only have to play a few of the – actually, the Big Ten is like a 2, maybe 3-trick pony, if you want to call it that. Penn State's pretty good, but they basically just beat a bunch of bad teams and then lose to Ohio State, Michigan every year. This matchup is ridiculous to me. That's all I have to say about it.
Yeah, I'm not going to say any more. Michigan wins and covers.
I'll keep this quick. I think definitely Michigan wins, obviously. The projected score for this based on the over-under is about 28-7. I think that's a good number of points for an Iowa team. So I might still pick Iowa to, win the spread, but yeah, it's going to be an obvious Michigan win. I just think 21.5 points is a lot of points.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I just don't see Iowa. I don't see Iowa scoring any more than 10, and I think Michigan's going to score 35 or so. In my opinion, I don't know. I know Iowa has a really good defense. Yeah, maybe not. I know Iowa has a really good defense, but I think Michigan will be jacked up and ready to go. So, yeah, we'll see. But I don't think this should not be a championship game matchup, in my opinion.
Yeah. All right, last game.
Florida State and Louisville. I'm torn here. I feel really bad for Florida State with the Jordan Travis injury. I wish he wouldn't have got hurt because they were rolling, and they would have been one of those teams in the mix to win a national championship. With that being said, I don't think they can win a national championship without Jordan Travis. I don't think they're one of the 4 best teams in the country without Jordan Travis. I probably would have picked Louisville before Louisville laid an absolute egg against Kentucky. Now I'm a little bit torn, so I'm still going to pick Florida State to win and cover. When you have a line under 3 points, I kind of don't really consider the difference between that and a pick 'em. So I'm going to take Florida State, partially because my buddy Wes is a big Florida State guy, and I've been to a few games in Tallahassee with him. So I'll pick Florida State for that sake. I think absolute chaos scenario. I kind of want Florida State to win, Bama to win, I obviously don't want Texas to win, but if Texas does win and you get this scenario where everyone's like, well, Bama and Texas are both better than Florida State, but are you really going to leave out an undefeated Power 5 champ? But then Texas beat Bama. Are you really going to like? There's some scenarios that could cause absolute chaos for the committee, and that would be fun. So yeah, we'll see what happens.
Yep. I agree with Kade. FSU is going to win, and they are going to cover anytime it's under 3. It's like you might as well take the over and see if you can win your money back and more. I like them. I still like them without Jordan Travis. Rodemaker, I think is his name. Tate, right? Tate Rodemaker. He's played pretty good since he's been gone because he has a lot of support around him. I still like Florida State in this game. Unfortunately, would love for Louisville to win, and that gives other teams a better chance to be able to hop them and see where that goes. But they're gonna take care of business.
Yeah, same logic in my mind. I think when it wins this small, just if you just pick them, and then at that point you might as well just take the favorite if you think that's the way to go. So
for sure.
All right.
I think this is the most interesting game of the weekend. Because with Louisville losing to Kentucky, Louisville would have been in a position to potentially make the playoff if they beat Florida State, depending on what happened, had they not lost the game. Now they're out. If they beat Florida State has no chance as a one loss. That really clears a lot of things up from a potential, who gets in scenario.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is one of the more interesting ones just because of the ramifications it has, though, because nobody wants to put Florida State in without Jordan Travis, even if they're undefeated. That's kind of clear. But can you set the precedent that an undefeated Power 5 champ doesn't get in because their starting quarterback got injured? That just seems wild to me that could happen. And I don't think you can leave them out. So it'll be super interesting to see if Florida State wins, what happens there.
Yeah, for sure.
It's going to be Power 4.
Yeah, that's true. And there will be 12 teams next year, so it'll be less of an issue because they'll all be getting in. It'll just be a matter of seeding and structure.
Right.
So anyway, okay, that was fun. Go Pokes over the weekend, and we'll recap next week, and Tim can gloat or I can gloat. We'll see which way it goes.
Sounds like a good plan. I look forward to gloating.
Yeah. Thanks.
Thanks, everybody.
All right. See you guys. Bye.